The Starship Aurora's fateful encounter. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly in all directions, an ocean of darkness punctuated by the glow of distant stars. In the heart of this cosmic void, the Starship Aurora, humanity's most advanced exploration vessel, glided smoothly through the black abyss. She was a marvel of engineering, a symbol of human ambition, cutting-edge technology, and the relentless spirit of discovery. Her sleek metallic hull shimmered under the faint light of a nearby star, her engines humming with a quiet, controlled power as she ventured into the unknown. Aboard the Aurora, Captain Elias Mercer stood on the bridge, his sharp gaze fixed on the holographic display before him. He was a man of experience, his weathered face a testament to years spent navigating the unforgiving frontiers of space. His crew, a mix of the finest minds Earth had to offer, worked diligently at their stations, their fingers dancing over control panels as they monitored ship functions and scanned the surroundings. "Status report," Mercer commanded, his deep voice carrying the authority of a leader who had seen it all. "All systems green, Captain," replied Commander Sienna Vale, his trusted first officer. Her short auburn hair framed a face of unshakable determination. "We're approaching the coordinates of the anomalous signal we picked up an hour ago. Still no visual on its source." "Strange," muttered Dr. Arjun Patel, the ship's lead scientist. "A distress signal without any identifiable transmission signature. No known human, no recorded alien frequency. It's like it appeared out of nowhere. Or like someone didn't want us to know where it came from," added Lieutenant Jackson Reed, the ship's tactical officer, his fingers hovering over the weapons console, ready for anything. The Aurora had been dispatched to this sector of the Andromeda Galaxy on a routine deep space survey mission, charting habitable worlds and searching for signs of intelligent life. But now, they had stumbled upon something unexpected. A beacon emitting an encrypted distress call, pulsing faintly from a region of space where no known ships or settlements were supposed to be. As they neared the coordinates, the ship's long-range scanners began to pick up something massive drifting in the void. "Captain, we have a visual," Sienna announced, enhancing the display. The crew fell silent as the holographic projection materialized in the center of the bridge. A colossal vessel, far larger than the Aurora, floated lifelessly in the darkness. Its surface was jagged and battle-scarred, a monstrous relic of war lost in time. The ship bore no recognizable insignia, its alien design unlike anything humanity had encountered before. "It's abandoned," whispered Patel, his voice tinged with awe and apprehension. "Any life signs?" Mercer asked. Sienna worked the scanners. Faint readings, but nothing consistent. Could be interference, could be something else. Reed tightened his grip on the console, or it could be a trap. The captain weighed the risks. In all his years of service, he had learned that space had a way of hiding its deadliest secrets in the most unassuming places. And yet something about the ship called to him, as if it was meant to be found. "We're going in," Mercer finally decided. "Prep a boarding party." Within minutes, the away team, led by Sienna, accompanied by Paddle, Reed, and 2 security officers, assembled in the hangar bay, their sleek exosuits gleaming under the artificial lights. They boarded a small, maneuverable shuttle, which detached from the Aurora and began its slow, cautious approach toward the derelict vessel. As they closed the distance, the ship's eerie silence became almost suffocating. The exterior was riddled with deep gashes, melted metal, and signs of heavy combat. Whoever had built it had been in a fight, and they had lost. The shuttle docked with what appeared to be a maintenance hatch, its airlock hissing as it made contact. The team stepped forward, weapons at the ready, and as the hatch finally gave way, the darkness beyond swallowed them whole. Inside, the air was stale and heavy, carrying the scent of something long forgotten. The ship's interior was cavernous, its hallways stretching like an ancient labyrinth of metal and shadow. The walls bore strange carvings, unreadable symbols that pulsed faintly as if responding to their presence. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered Reed, sweeping his flashlight across the corridor. "Stay close," Sienna instructed, her tone unwavering. "Let's find out what happened here." They moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing through the dead halls. Paddle knelt by a control panel, brushing away layers of dust as he attempted to access the ship's systems. "Power is almost completely drained, but I think I can restore partial functionality." "Do it," Sienna ordered. As Paddle worked, something in the shadows stirred. A low, guttural sound rippled through the darkness, followed by the unmistakable clicking of claws against metal. Reed whipped around, rifle raised. Did anyone hear that? The team froze. Then, from the depths of the ship, they emerged. Tall, reptilian figures stepped into view, their glowing yellow eyes cutting through the gloom like twin suns. Their scaly hides gleamed under the dim emergency lights, their bodies armored in dark, jagged plating. They moved with a terrifying precision, their razor-sharp claws twitching as if anticipating bloodshed. "Hostiles," Reed barked, raising his weapon. The Reptiloids attacked. The corridor erupted into chaos as the aliens lunged, their speed unnatural for their size. Sienna fired the first shot, her plasma round searing through the darkness, striking one of the creatures square in the chest. But the Reptiloid barely flinched. It let out a hissing growl, its wounds sealing almost instantly. "Regenerative capabilities," Patel shouted in alarm. "They heal too fast." "Fall back. Get to the shuttle," Sienna commanded. The team scrambled to retreat, but the Reptiloids were fast. Too fast. One of the creatures grabbed a security officer, its claws slicing effortlessly through armor. The man barely had time to scream before he was dragged into the darkness. "Damn it!" Reed shouted, unloading a volley of plasma fire. The team burst into a sprint, racing down the corridors as the Reptiloids pursued them like predators closing in on their prey. The shuttle was just ahead. If they could make it, they had a chance. "Almost there," Sienna shouted. A sudden explosion rocked the ship, the hatchway behind them sealing shut. "No, no, no," Patel panicked, slamming his fists against the controls. "They're locking us in." The Reptiloids surrounded them. Sienna looked to her team, eyes steeled with resolve. "We're not dying here." Captain Mercer's voice crackled through the comms. "Sienna, what's happening over there?" She took a breath, knowing they were out of time. "Captain, we're not alone." Trapped in the Reptiloid hive, a thick silence hung in the air, interrupted only by the faint crackling of static from the team's comms. The Reptiloids stood motionless for a moment, their glowing yellow eyes fixated on their human prey. The corridor's dim emergency lights barely illuminated their hulking forms, bodies clad in biomechanical armor, their scales glistening like obsidian under the dull red glow. Their chests rose and fell with deep, measured breaths, nostrils flaring as they scented their enemies. Sienna Vale clenched her fists around her plasma rifle, her mind racing through every possible way out of this situation. The door to the shuttle was sealed, the controls locked out. Whatever intelligence powered this ship had activated the lockdown, effectively trapping them inside. Reptilian war cries echoed through the ship, reverberating through its steel bones, and she knew one thing for certain. This wasn't a chance encounter. This was a trap. "Captain, do you read?" She hissed into the comms, trying to maintain her composure. Mercer's voice crackled back. "Barely. Interference on your end. What's your status?" Sienna kept her eyes locked on the approaching enemy. "We've engaged hostiles. They're not friendly. Our exit is compromised and—" She barely finished before one of the Reptiloids lunged. The beast moved like a striking serpent, closing the gap with terrifying speed. It swiped at Lieutenant Reed, its claws slicing through his exosuit, sending sparks flying. He barely managed to dodge the brunt of the attack, rolling to the side and firing his rifle at point-blank range. The plasma blast hit the creature's shoulder, searing its scales, but the wound began to regenerate almost instantly. Not again, Reed cursed. These things are built different. The security officer beside him, Corporal Diaz, fired a concussive round, the impact sending a reptiloid crashing against the wall. For a moment, it looked like they had the upper hand, until the creature snapped its bones back into place with a sickening crack and let out a bone-chilling growl. They're regenerating too fast, Dr. Arjun Patel gasped, frantically scanning his datavat. We need to disrupt their healing factor. Suggestions. Sienna barked, her team backing into a defensive formation as the reptiloids circled them like wolves. Their biological structure reacts violently to extreme heat and electromagnetic pulses, Patel explained rapidly. If we can generate a strong enough energy surge. A reptiloid pounced, its massive tail whipping around, and sending Patel flying into the wall. He hit the steel bulkhead hard. The air knocked from his lungs. Patel! Sienna shouted, blasting at the advancing enemy. Reed pulled Patel to his feet, supporting the dazed scientist as more reptiloids closed in. Sienna assessed their surroundings. There had to be another way out. The corridor led deeper into the alien ship, into the unknown, but staying here meant certain death. Move, she commanded, leading the charge. The team pushed forward, weaving through the metallic passageways, the walls lined with organic tendrils that pulsed faintly, almost as if the ship itself was alive. The further they ran, the colder it became. The air grew thick, tinged with an unnatural humidity that set their nerves on edge. This place is a nightmare, Diaz muttered under her breath. You're telling me, Reed agreed. It's like something out of a horror sim. A guttural voice echoed from the darkness ahead. Humans, you should not have come. The words sent a shiver through Sienna's spine. The voice was deep, raspy, layered with an unnatural reverberation that felt inhuman. From the shadows ahead, a massive figure emerged. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, its scaled armor thicker than the others, its eyes brighter, filled with a predatory intelligence. Their leader, Sienna whispered. The creature took a slow, deliberate step forward, unbothered by their weapons. You venture into the depths of the abyss, knowing not what lurks within. It continued, its tone almost amused. Your kind is as arrogant as ever. Sienna raised her rifle. And you talk too much. She fired. The plasma bolt shot straight toward its chest, only for the reptiloid leader to catch the blast with its bare hand. The energy dissipated across its scales, as if absorbed into its very being. Impossible, Patel gasped. The reptiloid leader snarled, extending a massive energy blade from its armored gauntlet. You will serve a greater purpose, it growled. As fuel for the Legion. Then, without warning, the ship itself trembled. Sienna barely had time to process what was happening before a horrifying realization struck her. The walls, the very structure of the ship, began to shift. Panels peeled away, revealing pulsing organic masses beneath, veins of bioluminescent energy coursing through them. My God, Patel whispered in horror. This ship, it's alive. The reptiloid leader let out a low chuckle. You are inside the hive, it rumbled, and you will not leave. The floor beneath them lurched, sending the team stumbling as an enormous tendril burst from the ceiling, whipping toward them with lethal force. Reed barely dodged it, rolling aside as organic appendages erupted from the walls, reaching for them. We're out of time, Sienna yelled. Find another exit. A sudden transmission crackled in her comms. Vile, are you there? Mercer's voice was urgent. Captain, we have a serious problem, she shouted. This entire ship is some kind of living organism. We're trapped in its hive. There was a pause on the other end before Mercer responded, his voice grim. We're picking up massive energy surges coming from that thing. And more reptiloid ships are inbound. We need to get you out now. Sienna's heart pounded. They couldn't stay here. How fast can you override the docking controls? She asked. I'm working on it, Mercer said. But you need to find a way to disrupt whatever is powering that ship. Sienna turned to Patel. You said electromagnetic interference could disrupt them. Patel nodded, breathing hard. If we can overload a power conduit or find a control core, we might be able to shut down the Hive's neural network, if only for a short time. Then we find it, Sienna said. We end this before it ends us. The Reptiloid leader let out a low, rumbling laugh. You cannot fight the inevitable, it declared. The Hive is eternal. Sienna narrowed her eyes, gripping her rifle tighter. Yeah, she muttered. Then let's see how eternal it is when we blow its brain out. The battle was far from over. Into the Hive's core. Deep, unnatural rumble coursed through the alien ship, sending vibrations through the metallic floors and walls. The Hive was waking up. Sienna Vale could feel it, like the heartbeat of something ancient and malevolent stirring from its slumber. The pulsing organic masses embedded within the ship's structure now glowed more intensely, casting eerie green and blue hues over the walls. The very air itself seemed to shift, growing thicker, making every breath feel labored, as though the ship was trying to consume them. The Reptiloid leader, standing ominously in the corridor ahead, regarded them with cold, reptilian amusement. You do not understand what you are dealing with, human, it rasped. This vessel is not just a ship, it is a god, and you stand in its presence, unworthy. Sienna adjusted her grip on her rifle, not breaking eye contact. Yeah, funny, I've killed gods before. Before the Reptiloid could react, she fired, but not at it. Instead, she aimed at the ceiling above, blasting a section of the organic tendrils that had begun moving toward them. The corridor shuddered violently as the shot hit something vital, and a deep, horrific screech echoed through the ship, reverberating off the walls. The glowing veins along the Hive's surface flared brighter, and suddenly, the ship lurched sideways. Move, she barked. The team didn't hesitate. Reed, Patel, Diaz, and the others sprinted down the hallway as the Hive structure reacted, tendrils lashing out in all directions like living whips. One nearly struck Reed, but he slid beneath it at the last second. The Reptiloid leader roared in fury, the ship's sudden agitation disrupting its stance. You are fools, it bellowed. You cannot fight the Hive. Watch us, Reed muttered, firing a concussive shot directly at the floor beneath the leader's feet. The impact sent shockwaves through the structure, collapsing the unstable section and sending the Reptiloid plummeting into the darkness below. That's one problem solved, Diaz muttered, panting. Sienna didn't celebrate. Keep moving. If Paddle's right, we need to find the neural core of this thing and shut it down before it decides to digest us. Patel, still recovering from the chaotic sprint, nodded. If this ship functions like a living organism, it'll have a central nervous system, a core of some kind. Disrupt that, and we might be able to disable it long enough for Mercer to force an extraction. Where? Reed asked. Patel scanned the walls, reading the bioluminescent patterns shifting around them. This way. He pointed toward a downward-sloping tunnel. Great, Reed muttered, deeper into the belly of the beast. With no other options, the team pressed on, venturing deeper into the Hive. Inside the Hive, as they descended, the ship's interior changed. The walls, previously a combination of alien steel and organic growth, had now become almost entirely organic. The floors had a spongy texture, pulsating beneath their boots like the inside of some horrific living stomach. The temperature was rising too. The deeper they went, the hotter and more humid it became. It's like walking into a damn furnace, Diaz muttered. The core is near, Patel confirmed. Something is generating immense amounts of energy. The passage widened into an enormous chamber, and the team came to a sudden stop. In the center of the room was something grotesque, a massive pulsating structure, its surface covered in writhing tendrils, biomechanical cables, and sickly glowing veins. The core was alive, its fleshy outer membrane shifting, revealing glimpses of dark, pulsating energy within. Patil swallowed. That's it. The hive's neural core. Great, Reed said. Now how do we kill it? Before Patil could answer, the ship reacted. The walls shifted, and from the organic folds of the hive's structure, reptiloids emerged, dozens of them. Not just warriors, but guardians, their armor darker, their eyes burning with the hive's energy. And then, the reptiloid leader returned. It had survived the collapse. Stepping into the chamber, its body crackling with energy, it glared at Sienna with something far beyond hatred. You meddle in powers beyond your comprehension, it growled. You have no future here, human. Sienna exhaled slowly, her heartbeat steady, her mind calculating. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting on enemy ground. But she had a plan. Patil, she said, how much power would it take to overload this thing? Patil hesitated. A massive surge, something strong enough to send a shockwave through the hive's entire system. But we don't have. Sienna turned to Reed. Reed, the EMP charges in your pack. His eyes widened. You want to set them off inside the core. Would it work? She asked Patil. The scientist looked at the pulsating neural mass, then back at Sienna. He nodded slowly. It could stun the hive long enough for Mercer to override the docking controls and get us out of here. Sienna turned back to Reed. Set the charges. The reptiloid leader realized what was happening. Stop them, it roared. The hive came alive, the entire room convulsing. As the guardians charged, Diaz fired first, taking down a reptiloid warrior before it could reach them. Reed tossed a concussive grenade, sending several enemies flying. But more kept coming. Sienna moved fast, covering Reed as he worked. One by one, the EMP charges were armed, their tiny blue lights blinking. They only needed seconds. Patil yelled into the comms. Mercer, be ready. We're going to give you an opening. Don't waste it. Copy that. Mercer's voice came back. Do it fast. The reptiloid leader charged, blade drawn, heading straight for Sienna. She dodged, barely avoiding the lethal strike. The force of the attack dented the metal beneath her feet, but she wasn't interested in fighting the creature. She had one goal. Reed. Now, she shouted. Reed slammed the trigger. The EMP charges detonated. For a moment, there was silence. Then the entire hive screamed. The core convulsed violently, its glowing veins darkening as waves of blue electromagnetic energy spread outward. The reptiloids froze, their bodies twitching uncontrollably, their biological enhancements short-circuiting. Even the reptiloid leader stumbled, snarling in pain as its connection to the hive was severed. The chamber shook, the hive's structural integrity failing. Mercer's voice blared over comms. Docking controls overridden. We're pulling you out. Now. Sienna didn't hesitate. Go, go, go. The team sprinted, dodging collapsing walls, racing through the dying hive. The hive wasn't just shutting down. It was imploding. And if they didn't reach the shuttle in time, they'd be going down with it. Escape from the dying hive. The ship screamed. It wasn't just the metal groaning under its own weight, or the walls collapsing inward. The very hive itself was wailing as the EMP surge ripped through its neural system. The once glowing biomechanical veins flickered erratically, their vibrant energy dying out in spasms of electric discharge. The floor trembled violently beneath the team's boots, and the walls, once shifting and alive, were now convulsing like a creature in its death throes. Sienna Vale pushed forward, leading the charge through the chaos. Every breath she took was thick with humidity, filled with the scent of something organic burning from within. The hive was collapsing, and if they didn't make it to the shuttle in time, they would be buried along with it. Move, 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 she barked, her voice barely audible over the shrieking coming from the ship's core. Behind them, the reptiloid leader was still alive, but not unscathed. It staggered, its armored frame twitching as the EMP continued to disrupt its enhancements. The once powerful glow in its eyes flickered, but its rage remained undiminished. "You think this will stop us?" it snarled, pushing through the trembling floor. "The Legion cannot be destroyed. The Hive will rise again." "Not today," Sienna shot back, raising her rifle. She fired, but before the plasma round hit, the Reptiloid vanished. A blur of motion. Sienna barely had time to react before a heavy impact slammed into her chest, sending her flying backward. Her suit's shields absorbed some of the force, but pain exploded through her ribs as she crashed into a bulkhead. The impact rattled her skull, and for a brief moment, her vision blurred. "Captain," Reed shouted. Sienna forced herself up, coughing. The Reptiloid leader loomed over her, its blade crackling with unstable energy, still affected by the EMP. "You have fought well," it growled. "But you cannot escape the Hive." "Watch me," she hissed. Before the Reptiloid could strike, Diaz and Reed opened fire, their weapons lighting up the corridor in bursts of searing blue plasma. The Reptiloid snarled, using its blade to deflect some of the shots, but its movements were slower, its enhancements failing. Sienna didn't hesitate. She reached for the combat knife strapped to her leg, gripping it tightly before lunging forward. The Reptiloid turned too late. The blade plunged deep into its side, piercing through its weakened armor and twisting into a vital organ. A guttural snarl of agony escaped its throat, its yellow eyes wide with fury. Sienna twisted the blade deeper, her voice low. "Tell your gods we're coming." She ripped it out, and the Reptiloid staggered, clutching its wound as dark blood spilled across the shaking floor. It let out one final growl before its body collapsed, twitching as the Hive's failing energy engulfed it in electric spasms. Sienna turned to her team, breathing hard. "We need to go. Now." The race to the shuttle. The corridors were disintegrating around them. Tendrils of the Hive shriveled up, curling into themselves as if the ship were actively dismantling its own existence. Patel ran alongside them, clutching his datapad, his eyes wide as he watched the ship's readings. "The Hive is undergoing neural death. If we don't get out in the next 90 seconds, it'll take us with it." "Noted," Reed growled, nearly stumbling as a section of the floor collapsed beneath him. They could see the shuttle ahead, their only lifeline out of this nightmare. But the docking bay was flooded with debris, sparks raining down from the collapsing ceiling. And then, the Hive fought back. From the darkness, swarms of insect-like drones erupted, screeching through the air with bladed limbs glinting. "Are you kidding me?" Diaz shouted, opening fire. The drones descended in waves, some exploding on impact, others latching onto their armor, trying to drag them back into the ship. Sienna fired rapidly, but the sheer number was overwhelming. "We're not going to make it," Patel shouted. Suddenly, Mercer's voice roared over the comms. "Brace yourselves. I'm opening fire on the docking bay doors." "What?" Reed yelled. "Captain, you'll..." Before he could finish, the Aurora's railguns fired. A deafening shockwave ripped through the docking bay as the external hull exploded outward, creating a gaping exit into open space. The force sent metal, drones, and debris flying in all directions. The sudden decompression ripped the air from their lungs, and gravity ceased to exist. "We're getting sucked out." Patel panicked. Sienna gritted her teeth. "Use your mag boots. Stay on course." The team activated their gravitational tethers, skidding toward the shuttle, even as debris whirled past them. Diaz reached it first, slamming the emergency override. The hatch slid open, and one by one, the team dived inside. Sienna was the last to leap, her body weightless as she propelled herself toward the shuttle. She barely made it through before the hatch sealed shut. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, the Hive detonated. The final moments. The explosion was blinding. A massive shockwave of blue energy expanded outward as the Hive imploded, folding in on itself before collapsing into pure oblivion. The shuttle's thrusters ignited, and they rocketed away from the destruction, escaping the blast radius by mere seconds. From the cockpit, Reed stared at the view screen, watching the massive alien vessel vanish in a swirling maelstrom of energy. "Damn," he breathed. Sienna sat in the co-pilot seat, gripping the controls with white-knuckled hands. Her heart was still racing, her mind replaying the battle over and over again. The Hive was gone, but something in her gut told her this wasn't over. Mercer's voice came over the comms. "Glad to see you're still breathing, Commander. We thought we lost you for a second." Sienna exhaled, forcing herself to steady her breathing. "Not today, Captain," she said. "But we've got a problem." "Go on." She looked at her team, then back at the debris field, her expression grim. "The Hive is gone, but that Reptiloid leader said something before it died. It wasn't just boasting. It was warning us." Reed turned to her, his face pale. "You think this was just one Hive?" Sienna nodded slowly. "Yeah, and if we just killed one." She let the words hang. Diaz finished the sentence for her. "Then how many more are out there?" Silence filled the shuttle. Through the window, the void of space stretched endlessly, a haunting reminder that the Legion wasn't finished. The war had only just begun.